Well, I wonder if Democrats as a party could be doing more to raise alarms along the lines of what you're talking about Trump's escalating authoritarianism. When Trump calls for the arrest or the prosecution of this or that Democrat, couldn't the party leadership all stand up as one and warn that this is an emergency, that Trump is threatening to arrest and prosecute members of the opposition, and this is the onset of authoritarian rule? Couldn't Democrats do more of that kind of thing in unison? Would you like to see more?
Yeah, don't you think? um, and I mean, look, I understand there are people who've stood up. I want to say, and we should give kudos to those people. I think Cory Booker, has been terrific. I think that we've seen people standing up. Chris Murphy, Gavin Newsom. There are people who are regularly calling it out, right? Uh, but but I wonder about lots of other folks. And it's not something that it's like, well, maybe, if something happens this month, I'll say something. No, it's happening every single day. I mean, I'm living it here in Chicago and in Illinois that it's happening, but it's happening in Portland. It's happened in L.A. It's happening in Washington, D.C., and those are just the troop movements. We're also seeing ICE in places that, nobody expected them to be, in suburbs and rural areas of my state and elsewhere. So I am surprised that more leaders have not stood up. I don't think we should just say Democrats, like, why haven't Democrats? Because that sounds political. And to be frank with you, this isn't about politics. This is genuinely about the future of our country. Do we believe in a constitutional republic, or do we think that it's okay if this becomes, the law of one? The president of the United States, the law of Donald Trump, that is what we're going to go by, and not the law that is set out in the Constitution of the United States.
Well, Mike Johnson was just asked about the threat to arrest you, and he basically said, I don't really follow that stuff too closely. Go ask the Attorney General. So it seems to me the Republican Party is mostly a lost cause. Assuming that, yes, it would be better if Republicans joined Democrats, doesn't the Democratic Party really does have to step up a little bit here, doesn't it? It seems like what we need is a party that's sending signals loud and clear that we're in the middle of an emergency. Would you like to see that?
Yeah, Greg, I guess what I'm really trying to say when I say don't just say Democrats is there are business leaders. Yeah, they might be a Democrat, or Republican, or independent. There are university leaders. Again, what party they belong to doesn't matter. What matters here is that people speak out. Look, I'll give a little bit of credit today to Governor. I don't know if you saw that Governor Kevin Stitt in Oklahoma, finally said, he doesn't agree with the president. He doesn't think that, the National Guard of one state should be sent into another state. I don't think he's doing anything about it as chairman of the National Governors Association, which he should. But the fact that he spoke out about it is at least evidence that there's some people that have, rational thoughts about what the future could hold if we let Donald Trump do the things he's doing now. Because think about if the situation were reversed and there was some other party, the Democratic Party, there's a Democratic president who was calling National Guard into a state to confiscate guns. I mean, everything I just said is, against the law, unconstitutional. And yet the reverse of that is essentially happening right now. So people have to sort of project forward. What does this country look like if we allow this to happen now? So I think that's the reason that I'm not focused just on Democrats. I do think there are good Republicans out there. I know it feels few and far between, people who are Republicans and speaking out, but we've seen some of them, Bill Kristol and others, over the last few years. I think more and more we're seeing Republicans now saying, wow, there are limits to what I think Donald Trump should be able to do. I wish more people in Congress, though, would do it. They are genuinely afraid in their Republican primaries that they will lose. The people who've been willing to stand up and speak out, Don Bacon, others, right, have to leave office because they know they're going to get defeated in the next election.
Well, I think a lot of members of Congress are frankly afraid of getting killed, aren't they?
I mean, look, this is the world that we're living in, for sure. I mean, if they're afraid, you can imagine that there are Democrats. I have threats now happening at a much higher pace than ever before.
Is that right? Can you talk about that?
Just to say that when I ask our state police who protect me about, because they don't tell me about every threat that comes in, but When I ask them just, on the, what's the level of threats that are, the numbers, that they're more, a lot more now, and it's really since, it's really from before Charlie Kirk. And you saw that. I mean, look at the Speaker of the House of Minnesota and what happened to her and her husband. This has been going on for a long time now. I find it abhorrent that this is now part of our world, our political world. But this is, yeah, I think it's a dangerous world. Republicans are getting threats. Democrats are getting threats. But I think there is a tone that gets set at the top. From my perspective, this wasn't happening the way it is now under Obama, or before Obama under George W. Bush, or before that under President Clinton. But now we're seeing it, and I think it happened sometime during Trump's first term. I think there was a lot of rhetoric that he put forward that I think incited people rather, and I think it's being amplified now.
Are Illinois state officials going to do to protect Chicagoans and Illinois residents from ICE? What's in the pipeline? What are you going to do?
So I think there are probably two levels of things that we look at doing. One is what we're doing in the courts, focused on Illinois specifically and Chicago specifically, and what can be allowed. We've seen a federal judge now expand a court order that limits what ICE can do in enforcement. That happened before today.
But law enforcement on your side, what can be done?
Well, again, what we are doing is protecting the protesters. We've got Illinois State Police out there with protesters. Protecting them meaning they're standing in between ICE and the protesters in order to, because you saw that ICE was firing pellets and, gas pellets and rubber bullets and so on. That's rarely happening now at the Broadview facility. So that's an example of our local law enforcement protecting our people. And then
will there be more of that? Yeah.
We're continuing to do that. We want to make sure that if you want to protest peacefully, we are going to protect that right. If you're not protesting peacefully, then we're not protecting you from potentially arrest if you're going to be aggressive and violent. But I want to just say what the other level of fight that we're putting up, which is this is a national fight. And, what's good, if we can fight this on a national level, too, if we can get people incited to protest peacefully across the country, like, for example, at the No Kings rally that'll happen on October 18th, if we can have that happen, and we've seen a lot of spontaneous protests, peaceful protests across the United States, I think that's a really good thing. I think it sends a signal to the rest of the public, the folks who are just trying to get to work and pay the bills, and that like something's going on here that they better pay attention to. That's a very important thing for us to have happen, because if we don't win the 2026 elections, those of us who want to preserve democracy, if Democrats don't win that election, Katie bar the doors. We don't know what's going to happen in the future and whether we're actually going to have elections.
Governor Pritzker, thank you so much for coming on with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg. Great to see you.